I'm Julie Herman of Jaybird Quilts and Lazy Girl Designs, and welcome to the Slicker Tote Sew Along. The Slicker Tote is a simple, easy, basic tote elevated by adding slicker, glossy vinyl to your fabric to make the outside of the bag shiny, water resistant, and durable. It helps to keep things clean. You can wipe things right off. And the structure of the bag is created with the stiff stuff. We have a little bit of prep to do before we just jump on in and sew, so I want to go over some tools that are going to be very helpful for us. Flatter. We're going to need to make sure that we press out any folds in our stiff stuff and in our fabrics before we laminate them. And then we also are going to need some special tools when it comes to pinning. Traditional pins will leave holes in the fabric once the slicker has been applied. So I really find these sew tights to be very helpful. Specifically, the HD is the right strength for holding multiple layers of stiff stuff. You'll find a link below as well in the sew along emails. So let's jump right on into our prep. The first thing we need to prep is our stiff stuff. Before we go ahead and cut from our stiff stuff, we should go ahead and make sure it is super flat. Stiff stuff is available in two forms. It's available prepackaged like this. This is a 20-inch by 40-inch piece, or it is available on the bolt. This is 20 inches wide by many yards, and you can buy however much you need from the quilt shop. If you buy it on the bolt, depending on if you are getting it from the very outside or if you're getting the last little bit, the outside pieces are generally pretty flat. They might just have a little bit of a curve to them that you need to press out. The inside pieces might have more folds. But if you get it on the package, it's definitely going to have some folds, and that's okay because we can easily press them out. Remove your stiff stuff from the package and go ahead and unfold it. And you'll see it's got some creases. It's probably been in that package for a little while, but that's okay. Stiff stuff is a great product that really likes to hold its shape when you do press, but also can be brought back to life and be flattened. So go ahead and place it on your pressing surface. And we want to use steam or a product like Flatter, or both. And you don't want to touch your iron directly to this. It sometimes has a little bit of a finish left on it from the manufacturing process that can damage your iron. So you'll want to just use a pressing cloth or an extra piece of fabric. I've got a scrap fat quarter over here, so I'm just lightly spraying where my folds are with some Flatter. I'm going to take a fat quarter. You can use the front, the back. And go ahead and put it on this, and since it's 20 inches wide, I'm going to put my fat quarter this way to make sure that all edges are covered, and I'll just work my way down the piece until I have pressed everything out. And I'm going to put my iron at its hottest setting and turn the steam on as well and give this a good press. And you can see this fold is basically gone, as is this one. So I will just work my way down the piece, pressing these out. And if you feel like yours are a little bit extra stubborn, you can always flip it over to the other side and repeat the process, continuing with more Flatter and steam until you have it nice and flat. Once everything is nice and pressed, you can go ahead and cut out your pieces of your stiff stuff as directed at the top of the first page of the pattern. Before we go ahead and add the slicker to laminate our fabric, we want to make sure that our base fabric, in this case this orange or this Fairy Flakes by Tulip Pink, is absolutely flat. Any creases that still exist in this fabric before you add the slicker will retain those creases. They can't be pressed out after the slicker is added. So it's very important that we press these fabrics as flat as possible before adding the slicker. These are the two fabrics that I have chosen that I am going to use. This is going to be the outside of my bag and my handles, and this is going to be my lining. I do suggest that the outside of your bag is not a solid or something very close to a solid. Prints hide imperfections better, and the reality is sometimes you miss a tiny bit when pressing or something happens. So these hide those imperfections better. Plus, I just think this makes for more fun of an outside of a bag than this. So you're going to go ahead and open up your fabric and you want to use your flatter and your steam to press this absolutely flat. And the hardest part will be where it was folded on the bolt, because it's been folded there probably for a very long time. So have patience and really take your time to press this out, because it's the kind of thing that anything that remains, you'll be really disappointed if you have those folds when you add the slicker onto your bag. Now it is time to do this heavy crease that is right in the center from the bolt. And this is really where I find the flatter very important. I have found, for whatever reason, that I cannot get this entirely out with just steam. But when I add flatter, like magic, it goes away. See, it's just gone. It's amazing how well flatter works. There's one last thing to think about before you go ahead and cut your bag fabric as directed on the top of page 1. This bag is designed so that there's one piece of fabric to create both sides with no bottom seam. As a result, if your fabric is directional, you have some things to take into consideration. My fabric here, the ladybugs, there's ladybugs going up, ladybugs going down, which means when it wraps around to the other side, it's going to be great. This fabric here, got the bird here, but as you can see, the birds are flying in all different directions, so it's okay as well. If you have a fabric where all of the creatures or all of something are not going to be okay, like this, so if we made our bag like this, on one side, all of our hedgehogs would be fine, but then on the back of our bag, all of our little hedgehogs would be upside down. I made a little miniature so that it's easiest to show you what I would like to explain. So you're going to cut your rectangle for your bag, and the directions have you cut this 30. If you have directional fabric, you want to cut it 31 and then cut it into 2 rectangles. And then what you want to do is, if you have characters like this or something that's directional, you want to put feet to feet, so that when the bag is created, you will have all of your creatures facing right side up. So again, what you are going to do is make your rectangle a little bit larger. So in this case, instead of 30 inches tall, 31, cut it in half, rotate the one piece so that you have feet to feet, sew a 1/4 inch seam, press it open, and then get back into your project with laminating this fabric and continue as directed. And that way you will not have hedgehogs upside down. That is, let's see, do we need to do that for these? Yeah, it looks like we'll need to do that for the skunks as well, because otherwise you'd have upside down skunks on the back, right side up skunks on the other side. And then let's see, I think the snakes go in both directions. Yeah, so the snakes kind of go in both directions. Looks more like the heads are in that direction though. So yeah, I don't think it's as important with the snake print. It doesn't seem to be, but something to take into consideration is you might want to kind of make sure that you're cutting your piece so that you end up with a snake in the middle, kind of a generous fussy cut of sorts. So that's just something to think about with your fabrics. The options you see here are some gorgeous kits that Pink Door has put together. So if you do not have your fabrics yet for the sew along, we will post that link below. You can check out the kits from Pink Door. I'm going to go ahead and make my bag using these fabrics. It's time to go ahead and add our slicker to our fabric so that we can make our own laminated fabric. Double check before peeling the paper off that your slicker is smaller than your fabric. If not, double check your measurements that you cut your fabric and your slicker to. You want to make sure that your slicker is not any larger than your fabric. So once you've checked all your measurements, we're going to go ahead and begin to peel. And it's going to feel similar to peeling maybe like contact paper or something if you did that. I remember doing that as a kid to cover my books. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get the corner started, but you want to peel the paper off. And I like to peel at a diagonal so that I don't get any wrinkles or folds or bends in here. And once I get a little bit peeled, what I like to do is flip the paper underneath and put the vinyl down onto the fabric. And it's a little bit sticky, but it's not sticky enough to stay on its own. You can see it kind of will move. So you want to hold that with one hand and get the paper from underneath and then continue to peel underneath. You can see my vinyl's coming out until you get your entire piece covered in vinyl. like that. And if you need to do some slight adjustments right now, you can, but you want to just make sure it's in the right place. And one of the most important things is do not touch your iron directly to the vinyl. It will melt. It is not designed directly for the heat of your iron. Specifically, it needs a pressing sheet, and that happens to be the paper you just pulled off. So this paper was like this because we had our vinyl and our lines were facing down. Now you want the lines facing up towards you. And we're gonna do this in 2 halves because there's really no way to perfectly line this up and not have things. And it's just also easier to do in small pieces. So I'm gonna turn this, and I am covering the right half and a little more of my bag. And then the directions on how to press the vinyl are included in the wrap of the package if you got it on the roll, or if you got it off the bolt, they are on this, which is called the inner leaf. And they are also included in the pattern. You want to have a warm iron, no steam. If it's already on high, you want to turn it down to warm, which is generally medium. And make sure you allow your iron to cool down. So if you just went ahead and pressed the fold out of your stiff stuff, give your iron a chance to cool down a little bit. And maintaining the backing as the pressing sheet between, we're going to go ahead and press. Now we're going to do about 8 seconds in every area. I like to kind of get the corner started, and then I hold. And since the shape of our iron is not giving us an exact rectangle, I like to kind of move and make sure I don't get bubbles. You don't want to move from area to area. You want to glide, because if there happens to be any wrinkles in here, gliding will hopefully help remove them. Picking up and down will unfortunately create more of those. And you're just going to slowly work your way to adhere all of your vinyl to your fabric. And you want to let it cool a little bit. You don't want to do a hot peel. You want to do more of a cool peel. So let this cool down a little bit. And then when you go to peel them apart, you can see from the light here, it's perfectly adhered on. I can't peel that up. That is adhered on. So I'm going to continue that process on the front of everything. And then once I have done the front, we're going to flip it over and press from the back as well. Now, if after you peel, you see a little bit where it looks inconsistent, I hope you can kind of see that with the lighting. It doesn't look totally smooth. That's a good indication that it will benefit from pressing on the back as well. Pressing from the back as well is not always needed, but I find that it really does help the longevity of the bag and to get the vinyl super, super smooth. Don't need to use a pressing sheet when pressing from the back. Just need to flip it over and use your iron. And now you can see it's super smooth, nicely adhered everywhere. So I can go ahead and continue with the construction of my bag. One more quick note is to make sure you hold on to this pressing paper. We will be using it later on after we have put the bag together to press out any creases that happen when we turn the bag right side out. So hold on to this, it's very handy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you have any questions, you can ask them here in the comments, as well as in our Facebook community group. I'll be back here soon to go over making the handles.